Hey, well, we just got off a great Sunday last week with Easter, and we just met a lot of new people. And hopefully, you are with us here today because maybe last weekend you came and you were welcomed back. And man, we get so excited about that. And expanding the family and meeting new people is one of our greatest joys. And the longer I'm at Southgate, the longer I've been here, it's like the more and more I love this place. Like I love the people who make up this church. I love the family here. I love meeting new people. I love doing life with our family here at Southgate. I love the staff that we have at the church. It is a great place to be a part of, and it's our joy. It's exciting and it's life-giving. Now, we are just beginning this series called This Changes Everything, and that is based on Easter changing everything. And coming out of that, how do we live out the resurrection in our lives? And I'm excited to kind of see that take place over the next month in how we live out the resurrection, the story of Easter, and how that really does change everything. And we kind of tracked that last week as we found out all the things that have changed since the resurrection. Even time itself is kind of based on Jesus, right? And what does that say in our lives, and how do we communicate that? And so we're going to be challenged this week with going out to the ping pongs and doing these inspire life acts of kindness and recounting those. We got the hashtag inspire life hashtag that you can share posts on Facebook and Instagram and whatnot and share about, loving on people and getting out beyond the walls of the church. We got the wall, the Our Love Change Everything wall, and that really tells about what God has done in our lives over the past 12 months and recording the stories, the evidence of God working in our lives. And those are awesome parts of the church and how He's working in our lives. But as we kick this series off, as we launch this thing out, let me pose this question to you. What do you think the church should be? Now, sometimes I feel like if I asked 1,000 different people, I would get 1,000 different answers about what the church should be. We all have different opinions of what it should be, what it should do, the responsibilities that the people who get paychecks from it have. I mean, there's all kinds of ideas and models out there. And I've been reading this book, and the staff are reading this as well. And it's called Gaining by Losing. And we've been going through this, and I've just loved one of the chapters in this book. And today's teaching is based on one of the chapters, and just tackling this idea of what the church should be. And I want to highlight two main categories here of really what I think the church should be. The first one is called this. It's called the attractional model of church or of ministry. I remember Emily and I and the family, we were in Florida this winter, and we went to a church. I think we got a couple pictures of it. It's called Cape Christian. And when we actually decided to go to this church because we drove by it, and we were blown away at how this thing looked. And so we went outside, and there's a couple play structures, and they had sunshades on top of it. The play structures were turfed. They had a splash pad and an outdoor coffee shop that the windows kind of like opened up to the outside. Their lobby space was outside with tables and chairs. They had this fountain going outside, which was their baptism tank. It was like its own pond. And we were like, wow, this place is amazing. And because of that, we went back the next week. We were just like, wow, this is such a great place. And no wonder it is a growing church because people in the community actually want to go there, and they're talking about this particular church. And attractional ministry is kind of based on that, right? It's come and see what's happening here. It's kind of like the Olympics. If you watch the opening ceremonies or the closing ceremonies, or you watch a big ticket football game, and you see these huge stadiums, and you get the view from the kind of blimp or the drone from the outside, and you see from a distance what is taking place in the inside, and you see the fireworks show happen, and you're drawn to know what is going on in that stadium from the outside. You kind of want a piece of it. You want to know what's going on. This kind of sums up the attractional model of ministry. In fact, we could define it like this. It's existing in a way as a church that people outside of the church are drawn into it. So the come and see approach. And in fact, most of biblical evangelism is attractional. Most of the evangelism we see in the Bible is attractional. For example, God told Israel that they would be a city on a hill, that they would shine bright into the darkness. And what he's mentioning by that is the Gentiles, not the Jews, that the Jews would stand like a city on a hill, shine bright out into the Gentiles. And the best example that I could find that would be is the Queen of Sheba. The Queen of Sheba. And that story is told in 1 Kings 10, 5 to 10. That's kind of where we're going to go here, right? The Queen of Sheba, during the reign of Solomon, she keeps hearing things about the Israelites. She keeps hearing about them. She keeps hearing what's going on, what's taking place. It's kind of like she sees the fireworks at the stadium and she's wondering, like scratching her head, like, what is going on in there? Like, what's happening in there? I keep hearing about this. It sounds too good to be true, so I got to go and check it out myself. And we find out in verse 5 that says that she was overwhelmed. She travels for many, many miles. And in 1 Kings 10:5, it says that she was overwhelmed by what she saw, when she actually saw for herself. We pick it up in 6 to 10. She says this in verse 6. She said to the king, "The report I heard in my own country about your achievements and your wisdom is true. But I did not believe these things until I came and saw it with my own eyes. Indeed, not even half was told of me. In wisdom and wealth you have far exceed the report I heard. How happy your people must be. How happy your officials who continually stand before you and hear your wisdom. Praise be to the Lord your God, who has delighted in you and placed you on the throne of Israel because of the Lord's eternal love for Israel." It's the attractional model. It was the come and see what's going on. In fact, that's not the only time the attractional model is recorded in the Bible, because we see that God commanded the Jews to construct their temple in a way that was beyond just for themselves. See, the temple was constructed with an outer court. Do you get that? And the outer court was actually meant so the Gentiles could enter it and they could watch the Israelites, they could watch the Jews worship. The Gentiles could stand back, and they could stand back and actually watch the Jews worship, how they worship. They could learn about them and about from God, and the Gentiles could make a decision themselves after they had come to the temple often enough. And in the New Testament, we see the attractional model played out with Jesus. He tells his followers that they should be like a city on a hill. He's pulling that out of the Old Testament. Doing their good works in public that all others will see. In Matthew 5, 14 to 16, we see that take place. That the church should be a light in the darkness, that it should be a beacon standing tall for everyone to see. Or we look at Peter. Peter quotes the book of Exodus, and he told his church that they should be a holy nation, that they should be a kingdom of priests, and they should be a light in the midst of the dark world, and they should live in such a way that other people would see what's going on and want to go. In the New Testament, we see Jesus, the apostles, attracting large crowds by the way that they taught, by the signs and the miracles and the wonders that they perform, and how they worship God in spirit and truth. And amazement leads to attraction. Attraction leads to observation. Observation leads to conversion. And so, we need to live in a way that draws people in. We need to live like that. But when they get here, they should experience that as well, right? And that's what we try to do at Southgate. I mean, we try to do that. From the time the people pull into the parking lot and they're greeted by our parking lot attendants, to getting a cup of coffee, to sitting down and maybe meeting someone in the auditorium, from the songs that we sing to the teachings that we give down in the Kemptville ministry. I mean, everything is communicating the same message and the same story, and that's of God's love. And they should feel loved and accepted when they come into here. But we should always have the people who are not yet part of our church in mind. Many people know about the time in which Jesus was the most angry recorded in the Bible. Would you know that time? The time that he's most angry and upset? I think we could all agree that it would be in Mark 11:17 when he cleanses the temple, right? The time when he's angry and he sees what's going on. And what he sees is that a whole bunch of people are set up in that temple that we talked about earlier. They're set up there and they're selling sacrifices, all right? They're exchanging money inside the temple. And so what they're doing is they're catering to the Jews who are worshiping there, and they're making it convenient for them to sacrifice because they are selling what's needed to sacrifice so that the Jews don't need to bring the sacrifice all the way to the temple with them and then sacrifice it. They can just go to the temple without bringing anything, purchase their sacrifice, and then sacrifice it. That's what was taking place. And the Bible records that Jesus is upset about this. And it says that he storms the temple courts with a whip in his hand. And he shouts, "My house was intended to be a house of prayer for all nations, but you have turned it into a den of thieves." And most often than not, when we read that passage, if you're anything like me, when you read it, you are thinking, man, he is not happy. He's upset that they're exchanging money, that they are selling sacrifices in the temple courts. But I think we've missed a big part of that story. See, it's not just about the people making money in the temple that he's upset about it, but if you read the statement again, he's upset about what they're obscuring. You see, Jesus notices that these people are selling their sacrifices in the very spot that was for the Gentiles. That was for the outsiders. And now there's no room for the outsiders to come and see. The attractional model is thrown out the window in replacement of convenience for the people inside of it. And there's no more room for outsiders because it's all about convenience. It's all inward focused rather than outward focused. It's this attractional model that is so important to Jesus and so important to the Old Testament and really should be so important to us as we move forward and eventually as we build a new building here at the church. Which leads me to the second model, because attractional is not the only model of church we see. Second one is called missional. And it's often found in the New Testament, but we do find it in the Old Testament as well. We find it laced throughout the Bible, but more focused in the New Testament. And this model is, it begs to ask the question, how did you come to Southgate? How did you end up here? Was it an advertisement that you saw and you just decided to come? Was it a ministry, an event that took place and you decided to come to the church because of that event that took place? Or was it because someone actually invited you? And you know the person that they are and how they live, and you trust them enough that you actually said yes, and then you ended up here. Someone reached out to you. You see, the definition of the missional church, the missional model is this. The missional church is a community of God's people that defines oneself and organizes itself around real purpose of being an agent of God's mission to the world. And instead of a come and see approach, the missional church is a go and tell approach. Let's leave here. Let's go and tell. Let's go and do something beyond the walls of our church. Let's go out and be the church. And we see this in the Old Testament with the minor prophets, but we also see this in Jonah. Remember Jonah? He goes to Nineveh. He goes out and he goes and is displaced to go and share God's love to people. We see that evidence in the Old Testament. We also see this take place when Israel is sent into exile because of their disobedience. At the time, it's rough, right? It doesn't make sense to them. But we see later on that prophets like Daniel and Jeremiah, they tell how that exile could actually have purpose. Could it be purposeful that God wanted the Israelites to go to another nation to be exiled from their own comfort zone, their own place, and go out to a foreign land, to a foreign place, so that people could hear about God? Was that purposeful? I mean, was that laid out there? Even in the New Testament, we see Peter actually takes that same concept, and he says that we as believers, we as the church, should consider ourselves exiled. We should. And you might think to yourself, oh, how does that even work in the church? How do we consider ourselves exiled when we live in Canada? Well, how about you consider this? Every time you leave through the doors of the church, you are exiled. I mean, it's comfortable here. We are home here. We're in God's house here. We all get along pretty well, right? And we are a family here, and we're all worshiping together. But once you leave here, you are in exile. You're leaving the place of comfort, and you are going out. You are living out missional church, and you should be showing God's love. You see, the Old Testament switches to the New Testament. We have the shift from paid, highly trained priests doing the work of ministry to ordinary people doing the work of ministry. So we have two models. But which one's right? The attractional, come and see, or the missional, go and tell? Both. They are both vitally important for us to understand. See, Paul, in fact, said that God's primary purpose of the church is to equip the saints for the work of ministry. That's what we're for. That's what we do. That's what we're for. That's what the church is all about. And the saints do the ministry. The pastors do the equipping. In fact, the book of Acts, do you know how many miracles are recorded in the book of Acts? 40. 40 miracles are recorded in that book. Do you know how many took place inside the walls of the church? 1. 39. 39 miracles take place outside of the walls of the church. And that's, if I'm going to be honest, that's what I find so difficult about being the pastor. There's a lot of things I didn't sign up for when I became pastor, right? I thought I would be doing the ministry. I thought I would be seeing the signs and the wonders and the life change and the miracles. I thought I would be a part of that. But you know what I'm learning? I'm not on the front lines of ministry. You are. You are. You get the good stuff. You get to see the good stuff. See, the main place God wants to manifest his power is outside of the church, not in it. He wants it outside of the walls. In fact, when you read the book of Acts, you find time and time again that the apostles, they are outside of the walls. They're doing the work of ministry, not inside, but outside. They're gone. And in the book of Acts, you actually don't hear mention of the church all that often because they're always out. And so we have this process here at Southgate is to unite and to grow and to inspire passionate followers of Jesus. But could we say that to be united with Jesus, to jump into a relationship with God, to turn from your past and embrace your future with Jesus, to believe in the death and the resurrection, that paid for your past, so you would have a forever life? If we're saying to people, unite with Jesus, are we also not saying that you are sent? Is that not in there? That if you unite your life with Jesus, you are also to be sent. Let me put it like this. Let's take that same scenario of the football game, the stadium, the Olympic Stadium, or the football game, or whatever. Imagine the Red Blacks game. The Red Blacks game, you are watching, you're sitting in the stands, and you're watching this thing take place, and you're at Lansdowne, and TD Place, whatever it's called, and you see the quarterback, he calls the guys together for a huddle, and they all come running out, and they huddle in, and he kind of like draws out the play, makes the play, and they're all like, oh, hey, break, let's go, that's great. And they all pat him on the back, and they're like, that's a great play, good job. And then they all turn from the huddle, and they run back to the bench, and they go sit on the bench, and they're like, yeah, that was a great play, man. And they have Gatorade, and they spray water on their face, and they eat some snacks to recharge. And then a few minutes later, they actually go back out onto the field, and they get into their huddle again, and they're like, you know what, that was a really good play, man. It was a really good play. In fact, you are one of the best playmakers I've ever heard of. I've been telling my friends about your plays. Do you think in the next huddle that my friends could come and they could hear the plays that you have as well? I mean, is that possible? Could we do that? And they're like, okay, break, that was great. And they run back to the bench and they get some more Gatorade and they share some snacks again. And they say, you know what? I've been listening to the podcast about the plays. I've been watching some of the videos that the quarterback's been making about the plays, and And I've been sharing those on social media because they're just great plays. Like I really, really enjoy the plays. And then they go back out to the huddle and the quarterback draws another play. And then they hear about the play and they pat him on the back and like, man, I just you need to know how great and how meaningful that play is in my life today. All right? That's such a great play. And they go back. Imagine the whole first half. That's all that happens. They just make plays. And they get into huddles and they go back to the bench and they keep doing that. How would you feel watching a Red Blacks game like that? What would you say? You'd be like, guys, what are you doing? Would you just run the freaking play instead of just making these plays? You got to run it. You got to do it. You got to implement it. Listen, as the pastor, I feel like it's totally relatable. I think part of my role is to call the play, to quarterback it. And I love it. I really do. I love it when the church family, who I love so much, staff here at the church, the leadership, I love it when they take out their notebook and they write notes on the plays on Sunday mornings. I love that. It's encouraging for me. I love it when they take it seriously. I love it when I see people share and repost on Facebook and Instagram the plays and sharing that with their friends. I love it. I love it when they invite their friends to come and hear the play firsthand. But do you know what I really love the most? You know what I really love? When they run the play. When they do it. Because the only point of me calling the play is for you to run it. And listen, no matter how good I get at calling plays, if the team doesn't run the play, we got to forfeit the game. See, both models of ministry are great. They are. But at Southgate, the pastors and the staff, we will focus on the attractional come and see. We will make this place the best that we possibly can. We will run our programs and the ministries and the building and try to equip the best that we possibly can. We will point in that direction. But your role in the family here at Southgate, your role is to go and tell, is to be missional, to take the mission outside the walls, to live sent, to go out, to be in exile, and to run the play that we've outlined. And nothing would make me more happy and proud as pastor. And if that's functioning, if the plays are made and run well, you find stories like this. Check it out.
Hey, I'm Ben. I just want to share a bit of my story. I grew up going to church, Catholic church, till about I was 13, 14. My parents got divorced around that time, and sort of I stopped going, and basically over the years I became an atheist. Didn't really believe in God throughout high school and my early 20s. Till I started drifting off and going downhill. I started using drugs, smoking weed a lot. So I started going downhill, and sort of depression hit me and anxiety. And everything just went sort of dark for a little while. And one of my coworkers was going to Southgate. So I started talking to him, and he was sort of always someone I wanted to be like. He was very calm, and he was very open and very trusting. He was very easy to work with, and he treated everybody the same, which was with respect. And so I wanted to be a lot like him, so I started asking him about Southgate, since I knew it was Southgate and me. We sort of came to Winchester around the same time. So the first week I filled out an orange card and put it in the box. The second week I was lucky enough to meet Pastor Ben. We talked for a while at the beginning. I told him my story and everything, and at the end of the teaching, I talked to him a little bit more, and I decided to unite my life with Jesus, and we were able to screw in a light bulb that day. And I'd like to thank Ben Mussel for showing me Southgate. I'd like to thank Tanis for being very open to me and listening to my story. And I'd like to thank you, Southgate, because a lot of what I've been through and what I'm going through is being helped by you guys. And I just want to say thank you.
And so where do we go from here? Well, we've just seen some great baptisms, right? Baptism, people unite in their life with Jesus and go in public with what they know to be true and what they want everyone to hear, jumping all in and going under the water, which represents a death and resurrection. And that's been great, but what's the play moving out of here? How do we run the play here today? Well, here's the play. We're going to do this month is we're going to honor God with our time and with our talent and with our treasure. We're going to honor God by doing these inspire life acts of kindness. We're going to have ping pongs. We got these out in the lobby. What we're calling you to do is to take one of our Inspire cards as you leave today and just do something that you wouldn't normally do. Just an act of kindness, just an act of loving someone. As you are out in exile, as you are sent, would you do the work of the mission? Would you go out and love people in practical ways? And when you do that, you can tell the story about that in social media. You can use the hashtag #InspireLife. Let's just plaster the internet of what God is doing. And then you come back next week, you take a ping pong ball, and you're going to put it in that, and we're going to record 1,000 of those. The challenge is 1,000 of those before the end of the month. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to write down what has God done in our lives over the past 12 months. I mean, what are the God stories that he wants to share, and what are the things that he's blessed you with and provided you for and healed you from and set you free from? Can we write those down? We're going to place those on the wall located in the lobby to reinforce how God has just pursued us and how he's loved us and how he's just redeemed our stories, all right? We're going to share that. But maybe a step that you need to take is to get baptized. Maybe that's something that you haven't done that you know you should do, and it's a command that Jesus has given us, and you still haven't taken the step. And my ask, the play would be, would you consider that? I mean, we're having the tank set up all month, and we just want to honor God. We just want to take it to the next level, saying, just call some people out, God. And is that you? Is that something that you need to do in this series or the next couple weeks and take that step and publicly declare that I'm walking from death to life? I want to live out this resurrection story. Or maybe you're here today and you need to actually unite with Jesus himself. You've never taken that step. And you've come to Southgate. And maybe this is your second week, third week, fourth week. Would you take that step? Would you walk from death to life in your personal life and be resurrected and live on mission as a sent individual with a kingdom responsibility to God? Let's pray. God, we just thank you for your love for us and your pursuit. We thank you for your resurrection, how it changes everything. We thank you that, God, you allow us to go live sent, to influence our friends and our families and our neighbors just with your love and the excitement of what is happening in our body and our family, that we can invite people here and that it would just be a light on a hill in a dark world. So, Father, we want to honor you with all that we are and all that we have. We pray these things in